South Africa could soon see major changes to its immigration system, as Cabinet approves a revised white paper aimed at strengthening refugee processes and border control. But what does this really mean for migrants and citizens? Stay tuned as we break it down. Good evening. You're watching Izwi Newsroom Africa, the voice of Africa. Tonight, we turn to a significant policy development that could shape the future of migration and citizenship in South Africa. Cabinet has officially given its approval to a revised immigration white paper, a key policy document aimed at strengthening the country's immigration systems. The announcement was made during a media briefing by Khumbudzo Ntshavheni, who outlined the outcomes of the latest cabinet meeting. According to the minister, the revised white paper focuses on improving how South Africa manages immigration, with particular attention given to the refugee system. A white paper, in this context, is a policy framework that guides future legislation and reforms. It sets out government priorities and outlines the direction that new laws and regulations may take.
Africa, somebody makes an allegation. And they say, if you make an allegation, you have a responsibility to open a criminal case against you, so that those allegations can be investigated and tested in court if they are found this basis, and tested in court and the court adjudicates. But the tendency of wanting to treat political leaders differently from South Africans is not fair. Because tomorrow...
In this case, the revised document is expected to influence how South Africa processes asylum applications, manages refugee status, and controls migration more broadly. One of the central aims is to strengthen administrative systems, ensuring that processes are more efficient, transparent, and aligned with national priorities. This includes reviewing how refugee status is granted, maintained, and potentially withdrawn, depending on the circumstances. Immigration and refugee policy has long been a topic of debate in South Africa, particularly in the context of economic pressures, border management, and social integration. The approval of this revised white paper signals a move toward reform, although the full impact will depend on how the proposals are translated into law and implemented. To better understand what these changes could mean, experts have begun weighing in on the implications. Among them is Princy Mthombeni, chairperson for South African constitutional reform, who has highlighted the importance of aligning immigration policies with constitutional principles. Also providing insight is Loren Landau, a senior researcher at the African Centre for Migration and Society at University of the Witwatersrand. Experts note that reforms to immigration systems often involve balancing multiple priorities. On one hand, governments aim to ensure national security, manage borders effectively, and regulate the movement of people. On the other hand, there are legal and humanitarian obligations, particularly when it comes to refugees and asylum seekers, who may be fleeing conflict, persecution, or instability. The revised white paper is expected to address challenges that have been identified within the current system, including processing delays, administrative backlogs, and questions around the integrity of documentation. At the same time, any changes to refugee policy may have broader implications for how South Africa engages with international frameworks and agreements. For migrants and asylum seekers, the reforms could influence application procedures, waiting periods, and the criteria used to determine eligibility. For citizens, the impact may be seen in how immigration is managed at a national level, including enforcement, resource allocation, and service delivery. However, it is important to emphasize that the approval of the white paper does not immediately change the law. Instead, it provides a foundation for future legislative processes, which may involve public consultation, parliamentary debate, and further review before any new measures are formally implemented. As a result, the timeline for actual changes remains dependent on the next steps in the policy process. Public response to the announcement has been varied, with some welcoming efforts to improve system efficiency, while others are calling for careful consideration of human rights and constitutional protections. Observers note that immigration policy is often complex and requires ongoing dialogue between government, experts, and the public. As more details emerge, and as the policy moves through the legislative process, there will likely be further discussion around its potential impact. Before we conclude, it's important to reflect on the broader context. Migration is a global issue, affecting countries around the world. South Africa, as a regional economic hub, continues to play a significant role in migration patterns across the continent. Reforms aimed at strengthening systems can contribute to better management, but must also be implemented in a way that is fair, transparent, and consistent with legal obligations. As always, we encourage viewers to stay informed and to follow verified updates as this story develops. This is Izwi Newsroom Africa, the voice of Africa. Thank you for watching.